Welcome to this special podcast for EAGR's SNS2020 virtual conference. Across the busy conference, one of the unifying themes will undoubtedly be the people who work within the industry, both those who've been riding out the COVID-19 situation, but also looking to the future to ensure the workforce is there with the right skills and reflects the wider community. One company which is working hard on achieving that challenge is Vattenfall. The Swedish energy company is already investing substantial amounts of time and effort in working on the development of its future workforce. And at the sharp end of this is Sue Falch-Lovesey, who's the company's UK skills champion, as well as the liaison officer for the Norfolk Vanguard and Boreas wind farms. She joins me now to give an insight into these efforts. Sue, before we talk in more detail, just set into context the size of the Vanguard and Boreas projects.
They're very large projects. I mean, eventually, if and when they get consented and built, that'll be 10% of the UK's domestic electricity supply. Now, we believe in our projects and that the role these projects actually have for becoming fossil fuel free within one generation. And we want to collaborate with that next generation as much as possible to achieve those goals. So really, that's why we want to make sure the workforce and our young workforce is involved from the beginning.
So there are going to be jobs there. I'm guessing now's the time the hard work begins.
It's the growth in the sector for offshore wind that's really interesting. 30 gigawatts by 2030 means at least an additional 20,000 people. Now, that growth is across the whole of the energy industry. It's within engineering and it's within construction. Also, there's a ramping up of sort of the expectation for local content. And then when we put the technology and innovation in and we think about the international growth as well, you can see why there might be some sort of skills gap emerging, and probably one that we haven't felt yet.
So Sue, update us. What stage is Vattenfall at?
Vattenfall with Norfolk, Vanguard and Boreas is early on in the scheme of things. If you think of it as a 30-year project, we're still in the consenting stage. We are mapping what we need. We are looking at all the reports, the regional and national reports, to look at what the skills gap says there. And obviously they say there's competition for talent, especially for construction, utilities, transport and manufacturing. The other thing the reports say is that the occupations include electricians, skilled trades, people and personnel, and that includes, of course, project managing and financing, and technical and digital. All of these areas are the areas of the sort of jobs that we'll also be looking to target. And if you just take one area alone, let's just take digital alone. Within that, we've got data and analytics, robotics and process automation. We've got augmented and virtual reality, Internet of Things and how that links with smart technology. We've got AI and machine learning. And last but not least, we've got cyber security. So you can see where this talk of a skills gap starts to emerge. We're going to need more skills. We're going to need new skills. And we're going to need them on a scale that we haven't really seen before.
So a lot of work and effort's already been happening then.
At the consenting stage, it's about collaboration, learning together, exploring, piloting, evaluating, and we've done that at a number of levels. So we've had an early primary programme, an outreach programme with Colby primary students, and that's been great fun, and they're so professional, so they teach other young people. Then on the same lines as that, but maybe gearing up a little more, we've got the secondary and college programme, and we've invested in a programme called a 3D virtual reality offshore wind farm development programme. And very early on, we realised the students were better than we were at delivering this. 3DW and ourselves, our partners who were developing the programme, we helped the young people become more and more professional. They had now taken over. And pre-COVID, they were delivering to other schools. And we're talking about over 450 students have already done this programme with over 25 schools and colleges. So we're building on that.
And one of the big challenges for all of us has been the COVID-19 outbreak. And despite that, you've been finding ways to continue your engagement work.
Through COVID, we've worked with the next cohort of young mentors, and they've made it all digital. I mean, you just couldn't believe it, really. And it's very exciting. And we're going to be able to outreach using that programme from October onwards, once the schools have bedded in. We've had work experience pilots as well, and that's been interesting. What we learnt there is that work experience, and maybe the work with T-levels in the future, that needs to wait until we've got more people on the ground in Norfolk and to work with our supply chain. Internships with Ogden Trust have been exciting as well, and it's been harder this year, but the Ogden Trust, they've worked so hard to make this a reality for our schools and colleges, and of course we've adapted this year, and we'll see that go to strength. We're committed on that. One of the most exciting areas is year in industry. I see the potential for year in industry linked with UEA to be phenomenal, probably broader as well than UEA, but to begin with, UEA are fantastic partners, and you'll remember Angus Binion from last year. Well, he was a third year student that came to us, and he's back at university, started this last 2 weeks, and we now have 2 new year in industry students starting. We did all the interviews through COVID remotely and found 2 wonderful new year in industry students. Building on that, we've got apprenticeships, which we're looking at. Again, that'll take a little while before we've got the jobs in Norfolk and Suffolk, but we still have the project work going on within Vattenfall, and we have apprentices within Vattenfall. And not to forget the STEM Hub, because working with Celia Anderson and our colleagues at the STEM Hub, that's been very important to just map what's already going on, not to duplicate, but to collaborate with the other developers as well. That's a key point.
So it's now time to look to the future. How are you ensuring the workforce reflects our diverse communities?
Of course, diversity is broad. It's gender, ethnicity, age. You can be differently able in many ways. And I think what I've learned as I've worked with Vattenfall is that they believe in complete diversity and complete inclusion. And that is going to take a while to get right. We're doing quite well with gender. There's a good proportion of senior managers that are female, for example, and it feels like there are fair processes in place. In terms of how can we inspire the next generation and keep opportunities open to, say, for example, young females, it is about having role models who young people can identify, where they can see, oh my goodness, this is a job for me. I thought doing this was oily and greasy, and maybe they might not mind oil and grease, but actually it's more to do with the tech and the IT and the analytics, and it involves now a different way of working offshore. There's one young person who has been involved in the programme for a while, collaborated with 3 others that have also been working, and the 4 of them came on an international visit with me over to the Netherlands, and they taught 50 young people about offshore wind, and that was inspiring for our Dutch colleagues, and she'll be in a magazine soon over in Germany. So we're seeing some international collaboration here with some of the cutting edge work we're doing as well. And the international side is important. It's important that our young people realise that they're entering an international workforce.
One area that's been a big focus is working with the armed forces.
We need the talents of ex-forces colleagues, and they're perfect as a fit to the industry, but we need to make sure that transition is smooth for everybody's sake. And so there's a sort of a recognition award, and we've got the bronze recognition for our early work. So first of all, we want to make sure ex-service colleagues are really welcome and supported. So we have an armed forces champion, and his name is Colin Brown. He's an ex-submariner. And now with Colin on board, and actually other ex-armed forces colleagues, Rob Lilly, for example, who many people in the region will know, we're working together to really understand the needs of ex-armed forces colleagues that already work within the business. We've developed a new policy for ex-service people around training and mobilisation. It can be quite a traumatic experience when colleagues transition and they still might have obligations. So we needed to understand that and develop a policy which is now committed to. We've undertaken surveys, again, to understand the scale and the numbers of ex-service people in Vattenfall and what they're doing. And of course, we all think maybe they're all, turbine technicians or something, but of course they're not. I mean, they're in business roles across the whole of the business, not just in wind, but in our heat business as well. And then we've made sure we've communicated both internally and externally with case studies. So they're on our website. And in lockdown, I think this was one of the most exciting things we did. And Colin really pushed this. He worked so hard. But together with EAGA, the MOD's CTP, which is the Career Transition Partnership, and with the Department of Work and Pensions and also with Renewable UK, we collaborated over developing a session of 4 webinars. And it gave ex-service colleagues and their families and dependents a real insight into the business, broadly energy, and then into wind, and then onto hydrogen and other areas as well, and the skills needed. And I think people found that very helpful. We had 330 signed up to the first one, and they're all now on the EAGA website.
And what are you looking for in terms of personnel?
A workforce that is reflective of our society will better understand the needs of that society. So it is a business imperative as well as a fair thing to do. It is good for everybody to get it right. And then, of course, with the skills demands, we can't afford to overlook the talents of people. We need to, work hard actually to attract them to the industry and make sure they have the right opportunities.
So some amazing work being done in the classroom, in the community, to ensure a skilled, diverse and passionate community working for Vattenfall. This engagement and work is set to continue to ensure the offshore energy sector can attract the right people to keep it buoyant and help all of us on the path to net zero.